And it will be. Zach? Come on down.
Where do you want us?
Go do it this way.
Let's do it sideways so we can see everybody. There you go. Pay attention, please.
Let's do it by height as well.
Outside corner.
Well, it's his hair. And when I say your name, don't repeat that, just say your name. Okay, right hand. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, I
In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, I, Zach Brothers,
do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties
do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office of council member
of the office of council member
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will do my best
do my best,
of my ability to preserve,
my ability to preserve,
protect,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution and the laws
the Constitution and the laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. Do a good job. I do want to say a few words right here. I want you to check your ego when you walk in the door downstairs. Remember why you're here and who you're here to serve, and that they voted you in, and they can just as easily vote you out.
No
Do a
worries.
good job. Do a good job.
Y'all may take your seat to the dais, find your favorite songs.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, raise your right hand. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, I
Herb Pierce,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
and affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties
and affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office of mayor
of the office of the mayor
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will do the best of my ability
and will do the best of my ability
to preserve,
to preserve,
protect,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I want to get a picture, but we still need to do her present. Do her present.
Well, I did want to say a few words.
Yes.
In case you were
Yes, let's do
wondering.
it really quick. Ready? Here we go.
It has been an honor and a privilege to be here these many years, and I know several of you think it's been many years, but it seems like it was just yesterday. I've been on the council and I've been mayor, and it has been an honor and a privilege to be both. I've made so many friends with the staff. There's no way to tell you how great the staff of the city is, how hard they work, how much they love the community. You have to work with them daily to know that, and you will come to know that they are our biggest and our best asset, all of them. So I do want to thank the community for the vote of confidence that put me here these years, and also all of you, everyone that comes and presents, everyone that comes and does their job. I appreciate all that. Most of all, I would like to thank my husband, Gary, because he's been my biggest supporter and my biggest admirer. And he always says, next time you run for anything, make sure it's a paying position. I just want to thank all of you for this. It's been a wonderful time. Is it a fur coat?
Yes. It's okay. I'll set it here.
I did ask for an extra 50 cents because I've worked through the end of May. And Becky says that's not allowed. Oh, I did. Oh, really? It's beautiful. I appreciate it. It says I'm a class act. and I always tell them they're going to miss me when I'm gone. That is beautiful. Thank you. Good luck to all of you. I know you'll do a great job. And I'll see you when it's done. You popcorn. Like that.
Gary, we have something for you. But it's conditional, you have to share it. Informal.
Okay, now, anybody that was just sworn in, if you'd like to get pictures of your family, come on down, I'll be happy to do that for you. Perfect, yeah. So cute. Y'all done that one. That was picture perfect.
Okay, next order of business is selecting our mayor pro tem. So at this time, I offer some nominations.
I'd like to nominate Zach Morris for mayor pro tem.
Second.
We'll take a second, you just ask for nominations.
Yes, we're just doing nominations this time. So-
Nominations.
Any other nominations?
Any other?
So now you can open it for an actual motion.
Need a motion for Zach?
I'll make a motion to nominate Zach Morris for mayor pro tem.
Second? I'll second that. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Zach, congratulations. Discussion and appointment of Judge Robert Burdell as municipal court judge for the city of Lampasas for another 2-year term.
I move that we appoint Robert Burdell for a 2-year term.
I'd second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Robert Burdell. All right. That'll adjourn our special session, and we will call to order our workshop session. And a motion, do I have a motion to?
Move to adjourn the special session. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Call to order our workshop session. Discussion and presentation of our commercial substandard inventory.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. During the 2022 Council Planning Session, staff presented objectives and progress related to the comprehensive plan. One of the areas that Council identified was code enforcement as a priority. So you may recall back in January, I presented the residential substandard properties and we began working on those, sending out notices. At this time, we've brought back to you a few of the commercial properties that we felt needed some attention. So I'm going to go through those briefly with you. We have not sent out any letters or notices at this time. This is just for inventory purposes only. So code enforcement has been identified as one of the city council priorities to strengthen the enforcement and incentives throughout the city, to maintain the quality of neighborhood character, and renovate older structures in disrepair. This presentation is a representative of those properties that meet this initiative. This kind of goes through the entire chapter 18, which is our buildings and building regulations, and how they are described as the substandard properties and how it's defined with regarding to the regulations or requirements that we do as staff. So a structure means a building or other structure, or part of a building or other structure. Unsafe equipment means equipment on the premise or within a structure which is in such disrepair or condition that such equipment is a hazard to life, health, property, or safety of the public or occupants. Or premises or structure to include any boiler, heating equipment, elevator, moving stairway, electrical wiring, or device. An unsafe building or structure means one that is found to be dangerous to life, health, property, or safety of the public or the occupants of the structure by not providing the minimum safeguards to protect and to warn occupants in the event of a fire, or because such structure contains unsafe equipment or is damaged, decayed, dilapidated, structurally unsafe, or such faulty construction or unstable foundation. This is one of the first properties, which is on 401 South Key. This was previously an automotive repair, and since then it's been kind of vacant. There's been a little bit of activity, but not much. We have actually reached out to the property owner on a couple of occasions, so they are working on something at this location. I believe they are going to look towards actually demoing the building. I'm not quite sure what that's going to entail, but that's what we are working towards at this time. 602 Casebeer Street is just a property that was identified by our building official and our civil engineer. This is just a property that has one time or another been a business, and it's just been idle for many, many years. 206 Central Texas Expressway is another one. You can see the grown up debris around it, the brush, just the vegetation that's growing up, the dilapidated doors, the windows. It's just not safe, and anybody can enter at any time. 602 South Key Avenue, this again has been a building that's been vacant for a little bit. I believe at one time there was a small fire on the interior, and there is some structural damage on the interior of this building. But again, there has been some progress because not too long ago there were the gas pumps were removed. So we're hopeful that we're still looking at some progress in the near future, but as of right now, it's still substandard. 811 East 4th Street is another item that we've talked about several times. This is the church on 4th Street. It does need some repair. It does need some stability. There's some structural integrity that is at stake. We do believe that they do have somebody working on it right now, so which is a promising thing. We do have some work that an engineer may be working on it, getting some plans together to see what they can do to secure the building and possibly rebuild and rehabilitate. So right now we're just at a standstill. For 905 East 4th Street, this building is not occupied very often. It was an office, and it is there for the RV park. They have a little park there at this location. We have reached out to the property owner. They have boarded up some, made it a little more safe, but again, it just needs some more attention than what has been given so far. So it's another one of those properties that we want to kind of put some attention to. 1709 South Key Avenue. This is a building that is somewhat right past Bush's Chicken. It's over there on the left-hand side. It's been vacant for quite a while. I think it was like about 10 years is the last thing if I recall. So it needs to be boarded up, needs to be fixed, needs to be repaired. Something needs to be done with it because again, it is unsafe and there's a lot of area where people can get into it and that causes it to be insecure and unsafe for citizens. So this is another area we want to work on. 501 South Pecan is actually a ground speed store. So part of it is still operational, still great, but the back side of it, there has been some damage done to it. So it does need some upkeep, needs some stuff hauled off, some debris taken care of. And that is something that they will hone in on and look at and see what we can do to try to help and clean up some of the structural and see what we can do to make it safe. But again, like I said, this is a functioning, opening, commercial business in town. That it just is the back side of it that just needs some work. Just unsafe, especially if people get in there. And that is all that I have for this evening to present to you as far as substandard commercial property. There may be a time where we add more to this inventory, but we wanted to highlight those that are on the main gateway into town, areas that are on Key Avenue, maybe Central Texas Expressway, 190, areas that really come into our community. So as we continue and we start sending out notices, start making improvements, we may expand on what we're looking at in other areas of town as well. Any questions? Thank you very much.
You guys don't ever hesitate to ask questions. Next item on the list is a discussion regarding the assessment of New Hope Baptist Church and the colored school.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. One slight, maybe not correction, but slight note that I would add is that we're primarily talking about the New Hope Baptist Church. As some of you probably know from visiting over there or having the opportunity to visit over at the historic colored school, is we're still looking primarily at, flooring, ceiling, all of the NEP, and of course there's no P over there, there's no plumbing, but the mechanical and the electrical has all been upgraded, the structure's been upgraded, it has, it's certainly weatherproof, albeit the windows might need a little attention, but what we're talking about primarily this evening is getting some direction from council on New Hope Baptist Church. As referenced in our last city manager's report on May 8th, staff indicated there may be some interest in use of those facilities. And even regardless of the potential use, and particularly going into budget season, it's an opportunity for council to provide some direction on those assets. They will likely at some point need design professionals. However, that isn't the only option you have at this point. I don't want you to think that we won't investigate one or even multiple options for you at this point before we decide to get to the final design and maybe MEP or professional assessment of that building. Some suggestions may be, and the council did receive an assessment scope. I believe that was in May of 21 from Antonio Naylor of Alliance Architecture. That is a scope that you may like to look at again. We could get you an updated price. We may look at, let's have a trade or two go into the facility and take a look at it. Certainly the thing that I would offer as well is if you haven't been in the New Hope since the city acquired it, or if you're a new council person, we would be more than happy to tour you both of those facilities at your convenience. I'm not really bringing you a specific option or a set of options, but really what I'm trying to do is get your input and get your direction in terms of what you would like to see, maybe some answers you would want answered, some questions you would want answered prior to signing a proposal for assessment, professional assessment. I think there are a couple of things that we would point out to council is that it will likely need eventually an MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, engineering assessment so we can make sure we're within compliance with the code. And then also I think it would be in the city's best interest, and certainly I would encourage at some point a structural evaluation of the New Hope. I've offered you a number of different thoughts on it, but ultimately we want to bring back the scope and cost to council for further consideration. And as I said previously, we would certainly be happy to meet council over there at your convenience to take a look at those facilities. If you want us to grab a plumber and say, hey, let's go take a look at it, we can go do that. If you want us to go a step beyond that in terms of let's grab an MEP engineer and have a look at it, we can go to that step. But what appetite do you have? And by the way, you do always have the alternative, which is hold on, don't take any action at this time. So that is certainly another option that council can address. We do have an agenda item for you to formally provide direction to staff. However, whatever you tell us to do, we're not signing any contract, we're not spending any money, we're bringing you a scope back for your consideration at a future meeting. So I'd be happy to try to unmuddy the waters or answer any questions if I could.
So Finley, I like your idea of getting a couple tradesmen over there to look at it, like local contractors, to kind of give us an idea of what we're getting into before we hire anybody. Because the last time that we hired somebody, they came back with numbers and then we got hit by the contractors with like double the numbers. And so I'm not ready to spend any money on it without kind of having a pre-assessment.
The other, and of course that is a pretty obvious first step. The only risk that council has in doing that is if you have a contractor give you a number and we have to go out for procurement, because numbers are on the table. To a certain extent, so
well,
we have to be a little bit careful about
maybe
that.
not necessarily a number, but like what all specifically
Sure.
needs to be fixed.
Sure, that's absolutely.
Do we have an opportunity for maybe new council members to go check out the facility and then just get brought up in that roundtable that we're going to have?
Absolutely.
About today?
Absolutely.
I would agree with that because I feel it would be in our best interest to look at it and decide, what we think we need to do moving forward.
And certainly we've done this a couple of times as well, but we could begin the meeting there at 5:30 and then reconvene at the Calvert building at 6 o'clock if you wanted to do something like that, Mayor.
Luckily, we have a contractor that just was elected to the city council. Man, right there with us. I mean, he could be right, council.
There's absolutely some value in your personal experience. What I'm hearing from council, just so that staff is clear, is that this perhaps is one of a number of topics we may wish to discuss at a roundtable in the near future. Maybe convene a half hour before, or set the meeting for 5:30 at the New Hope, and then reconvene in the Calvert building 30 to 45 minutes later. Is that earlier?
I would agree with that. That's,
Is it possible earlier than 5:30?
At council convenience.
Maybe we need more time.
Very good.
4:30.
And you do have, council, you do have an agenda item. You do have an agenda item to set the date and time for that meeting, so but we'll certainly note that earlier, and we can spend a little bit more time on it. That's a good start. Thank you, council.
Discussion of Lampasas County recycling.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I wanted to spend a few minutes to go over some requests. We've had several requests from county residents. We felt like it was important. Talk to it with council, get some feedback. It's been mentioned on the previous item. This item is also on the regular agenda for discussion. But this particular item is our recycling center, our collection center. We have an opportunity for our citizens to go out there currently and recycle. We have some bins off to the side. We have some smaller area kind of out of the way for recycling goods. The larger bins sit kind of at the top of the hill if you've been out there, where you can get rid of heavy construction debris or large items that around town our trash pickup can't pick up. It doesn't fit in a bin or something of that matter. It is now. Okay, we're on. So, just to give kind of some background information for those of you who may or may not be familiar with our collection center. Currently, we started the collection center in 2018. There's a fee that's on the utility bill for citizens that live inside the city for 50 cents a month. About 2,800 individuals have that utility bill with that 50 cents, which totals yearly about $16,602. And this fee has remained flat since 2020. However, as the tonnage you can see in 2020 was $50, and that's what we were paying for the recycling per ton, has increased to $54.41 per ton in 2020. One thing that we do always require, so folks that use the collection center do show proof of residency and some form of ID and a bill. Typically, your utility bill could be another bill with your address on there. We do require that to use the center. And one thing that I just wanted to note is you notice we've moved the actual building, and that's actually improved how we take traffic in and out, and how we can kind of watch things, as well as make it easier on the residents. I just wanted to kind of note that. Going to the fees, you can see where we started in fiscal year 2019 and 2020. The collection of that kind of green, the dark green bar across the top is what we collect yearly. And so the first year, a little over $11,000, and you can see it starts increasing 2020, 2021 fiscal year. Until we actually kind of leveled off this previous year, just a little bit over what we actually bring in on that fee. So $16,947.68 was the year end. And again, the number that we bring in as far as revenue for this stream is about $16,600. So we're right at it. I went ahead and projected out where we're at currently this year. Seen a little bit of a downturn, and probably going to be just a little bit under the fees we collect. One thing I would like to stress too on the fees themselves, that's for removal from the bins, for the waste hauler to come in, pick that recycled good bin up, remove it, haul that off to a recycling center. That is not inclusive of the operations charges. So to give you a little bit of background on that, usually streets, this collection center sits under the streets department. They help as far as using the loader to kind of smash down the trash so that, you know, people can keep bringing things to the bins. They kind of coordinate that effort. We do have one individual that works out there. She does a great job. She takes the payment on site, or you can pay at City Hall as well. But that's operationally, you know, speaking, you've got that aspect of it. So it's a part-time role, but typically, you know, it's Wednesday through Saturday. So, you know, it's a little over, it's around 30 hours a week. So the way we've got it structured and set up for folks to come in and out of that center, just to give you some background on the operations. In this particular slide, I just wanted to share with you to make note, based on the request of having county residents start recycling in our center. You know, there's an importance to that as far as the environmental concerns and trying to be a little more green and observant of those things and giving those folks a place to take those recycling goods. But as you can see in this, we already on the trash side where we have the bins have a resident fee as well as non-resident and a contractor fee. So really I just wanted to make sure council was aware of that. So we're doing that on one side of the house now. And so we're really looking at, does it make sense to move that over for county residents? And as I mentioned, there's been quite a bit of interest. What I wanted to stress is as far as how we could manage this and maintain who can come and go. If you're a county resident, obviously you can show your ID just like a citizen of the city does. But it can be structured within our utility billing system. So basically what would happen is they would come in and pay for a year, and then we would have information at the collection center. So when that individual came in to recycle throughout the year, they would be on the list. No other fees, they'd pay that one fee yearly, but it would help us track that so that we can see, you know, what that revenue stream really looks like comparative to what we're paying for the waste to be recycled and hauled off. So something really to consider, and you know, I stress that aspect of it. We don't have any data. We don't know how many folks from the county are really going to use this service if we, you know, or if council allows that and sees fit to that. So we would like to make sure that we're you know, setting a fee that makes sense. The example that I had here, and I did some research just in some of the surrounding communities, but kind of the average is between $3 and $6, and that's typically for some like Burnet. I think they're right at $3. They also have recycling at the curb. We don't do that. But there's not, you know, looking around at some of the other cities, a lot of them don't necessarily have collection centers. This is kind of a unique situation. So there wasn't really anything comparative for county residents who want to come bring recycling. So I was looking at, you know, what do other cities around us charge and kind of comparatively. I think $3 a month seems pretty reasonable with a yearly cost of $36. So just something for council to consider. Again, this will come back later in the regular agenda if there's a direction that you'd like to give staff or move forward on. And I'll stand for any questions.
So you would have them sign up, and then they could sign up at any point, but then they're signed up for the year, like they have to do it for a year, and then that will give us kind of an idea on how many people would be interested to make sure that that's covering it.
Correct. I think if we structure it where it's a year fee up front, that saves folks from having to come down every month, pay $3, and just pay that one-time yearly fee. But it also helps us, as you mentioned, track those, you know, in our accounting system.
And it would be easy enough for that, it wouldn't put too much burden on the lady that runs that place to keep track of that.
No,
that they've signed up.
I don't believe so. I think as far as that goes, we manage that center pretty well. We've installed, and IT's really helped us. When we moved the building, we've installed a few more cameras out there to kind of manage the site. We've implemented a few things to kind of control that area, but I think it's manageable for you know, if you see a little increase in as far as users for that facility, I think we can definitely manage that.
So I definitely appreciate us having it because I use it.
So $36 per month for, I mean, a year, county residents, will they still have, I mean, I guess they still have, what does that cover?
That truly just covers the tonnage that we haul off to the recycling center. That $54 and back up real quick. That $54.41 per ton. That's what that would go towards.
Okay,
That
so
fee.
it's not like construction debris that I'm looking at.
No, construction debris. Those fees are what we actually have currently, and those are specific to all the things that we take in now, but not necessarily the recycled goods, because all the citizens now pay on their utility bill for that service, so they're already paying. This would just be for those, you know.
Do citizens bring that up already separated?
Typically, they will be. There's a couple different little small bins for specific things for recycling that are separated.
Where is, and I should know this, where is the nearest recycle facility that it gets hauled off to?
That's a good question. I want to say Delaney, but I'm not positive. Waco, okay.
So it all goes to Waco, and we're not, we don't pay anything when it's picked up and hauled off to Waco.
Well, it's in, as far as I know, you have the fee that we're paying for the tonnage, and that's the removal fee to dispose of it. $50 per ton.
Okay, that's what that covers.
Help me make it clear. The $36 fee, that's an annual fee from January 1. How are we making that work? Like, if I come in December 29th, are you gonna charge me $36 if I'm
So that's a great question, and we're obviously thinking.
prorated, or, you know?
We're actually thinking through that process. The thought process is you could do it two ways. So one way is when they come pay, they have that year, and we can document that in our accounting system next to their name, so we know when they paid. You'll know, we'll have the documents at the collection center to know when their year's up as they come in and
So if I
recycle.
came in June 1, you know my year is June 1 to June 1.
Correct.
Okay.
If at any time it made more sense to go back for accounting purposes, we could do a proration too, where it's if you came and paid June 1st, you're only paying for that amount, and then we'll send you a one-time utility bill at the first of the fiscal year.
That's-
You know,
I
there's
was
different ways to do
thinking along the lines of accounting purposes on how complicated it might get if
Right.
you got 1,000 people that come in and they're all different dates.
Right.
How much of a burden is that going to be on the county?
This will integrate with our encode system, so it basically we would be setting them up as a utility customer.
Okay.
Is that accurate, Paul?
No, it'll go into our recycling fees, and what we had talked about is, John Doe comes in, sets it up on June 1st. We can put it in our system under John Doe, June 1st, say 2024. Then that way I can run a report in encode, and monthly we can tell, Priscilla out there who all can do from the county, and then we'll keep it, I can move that into Excel and keep a spreadsheet on everybody. So it's available to keep it up in our accounting system.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
That's it.
Thank you.
Discussion regarding any items on the regular agenda. Well, I'll make a suggestion that we take about 10-minute break.
Make a motion to adjourn workshop session.
All good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll come back.
And
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, what a great night. We appreciate the rains that you generally brought our way sporadically on the days as we pray some work and we send our way. We'd be grateful. We thank you for this great city. We thank you for this great people. We thank you for the changing the guards tonight. We thank you for the services of those on their way out, and we pray that you be with those on the way in. We ask that you be with all of us tonight and exchange information, and that we can share ideas and the decisions will be made to benefit all of your people, which is your will. Lord, we ask that you forgive us of our sins and that you be with us in safety till we can meet again. And as always, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to these texts, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
At this time, we have some presentations and proclamations. Library recognition, Explorer Lampasas. All right, first one is Jacob Farina. No. Daniel Farina. Gabriel Farina. Kylie Davis. Emily Stone. Alice Thies. Successfully completed the Explorer Lampasas program from July 2022 to May 23rd. Thank you. City of Lampasas extends its gratitude for you for your dedicated service to the City of Lampasas and its citizens for 5 years. Jonathan Guerrero. Also, extending its gratitude to you for your dedicated service to the City of Lampasas and its citizens for 5 years, Danica Keelan. The City of Lampasas extends its gratitude for you for your dedicated service to the City of Lampasas and its citizens for 5 years, Cody Hitler. No. The City of Lampasas extends its gratitude to you for your dedicated service to the City of Lampasas and its citizens. 5 years, Esther Ramirez. We thank you anyway. Mr. Michael and the Boys and Girls Club of Lampasas staff. The staff at the club makes a huge impact in the lives of our Lampasas youth and their families. The staff at the club provides daily activities that focuses on health, lifestyle, health, arts, recreation, leadership. This program provides daily consistency for the youth that sometimes is not always provided at home. It's like a family at the club. One of the most important people in a child's life is trusting adults. Someone that they can count on, someone that they can talk to, and about their successes and about their struggles, and most importantly, someone that they trust. The staff are welcoming to parents and provide a safe place for the children daily after school and during the summer. This is a huge sense of relief for many working families that really depend on the Boys and Girls Club staff daily. In addition to the daily after-school program, the Boys and Girls Club staff provides community programs to reach even more Lampasas youth. They host a spring and fall soccer program and community events like the amazing Easter egg hunt and participation in Halloween activities. I personally am so thankful for Mr. Michael and the staff that I know countless of Lampasas families would agree that they are true community champions. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to take some time for EMS proclamation, or week proclamation. To designate the week of May 21st and 27th, 2023 as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas Emergency Medical Services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained member of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week now. Therefore, I, Zach Morris, Mayor Pro Tem, City of Lampasas, Texas, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st and 27th, 2023 as Emergency Medical Services Week. With the EMS strong theme, EMS Week, where emergency care begins, I encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Signed, Herb Pierce, Mayor of Lampasas.
So let's get the Explore Lampasas back up. They still here? Okay. That was beautiful. Okay. Y'all are gonna stand, council's gonna stand behind y'all, then we're gonna get a picture of y'all in front, okay?
so good.
You're gonna face me. Is that okay? Okay, 'cause I got the camera. Alright, let's slide down, guys. Come on. Together. Alright, or get in there. Get it done.
Let's step up to the kids.
We're just right behind.
There
We
you
don't want to
go.
touch it. It's okay.
Everybody there?
It's inviting.
Alright, good job. Thank y'all very much. Congratulations. Danica? Is it? Say your name? Danica. Danica? Okay. I only messed up a little bit. That's all right.
I've yelled at him for a few years.
Ready? Okay, thank you, congratulations. All right, come on, Michael, bring your crew, come on. Boys, everybody, Boys and Girls Club? Open it. Michael, we just hold them. Okay, so,
How are you? I'm about you and I about the same time.
okay, everybody has to be able to see me. Okay, make sure y'all can see me. Perfect. Your turn.
Everybody else, that work?
Okay, that works. I'm gonna give this to you to hold on to. It's already been signed. Everybody close it a little bit so y'all can see me. Good. Perfect. Thank y'all so much.
Sir. Appreciate it. Thank you, Rusty.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Citizens comment. Any citizen who desires to address the city council on a matter not included on the agenda may do so at this time. The city may not deliberate on these items presented under this agenda item. No one. Citizens comment. Any citizen who desires to address the city council on a matter that is included on the agenda may do so at this time. Public hearing to receive citizen comments, to consider a request to rezone the parcel 8121, 48.13 acres at tract 0042, John Burleson Survey, commonly known as 1206 Mill Street, to rezone and to rezone parcels 8246, 8247, and 8248. 38.83 acres, abstract 0042, John Burleson Survey, commonly known 1705 East 4th Street. Request to rezone 79.917 acres as defined on concept plat as follows.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a public hearing for citizen comments. This is regarding Tri-Crew Ventures, who has requested that we go through some rezoning for the 79 acres. It is a request to rezone acreage as follows: 3.046 acres to single-family attached which are townhomes, 10 acres for SF6, 35.195 acres for SF8, 29.360 acres for SF10, and then 2.175 acres to commercial. The property is currently zoned agricultural and single-family SF6. The area surrounding the property is commercial, single-family residential, and retail. All notifications and publications were sent out to the citizens within a 200-foot radius. There was 18 property owners. We did receive 1 in favor of request, and we received 7 in opposition. You will notice in your packet as well via email, I did send you all of those notices that we did receive and their concerns with this proposed zoning. The Planning Commission did recommend to approve the zoning as requested, with the exception of amending the 3 acres from townhomes to patio homes. So what I did is I went ahead and printed out what a patio home looks like versus a townhome. So you have that at your dais for consideration as well. I do want to kind of explain too a little bit different as far as a townhome. Your minimum lot size is 3,000 square foot, whereas which a patio home, your lot size is a minimum of 4,500 square foot. So your lot size will be a little bigger. One of them has a 0 lot line on one side. One of them would have a 10-foot side yard on the other, which is your patio home. And then of course with your townhomes, they would be adjoined, and you have, I believe it's 250 feet of adjoining units that they can be. So that kind of just explains a little bit of the difference with those 2 types of zoning. We did hear this actually back in January when this started, and they had a concept plan of a little over 350 homes. At that time, when they did it, it was all SF6, so there were smaller lots. So the Planning Commission, they did recommend that they go back and relook at that concept so there would be a little less density, not so tight fitting, not so much congestion in that area. So they went back and they reviewed and they came up with a new concept which will actually show what you're looking at today, which is going to be the SF6, the commercial, you have your SF8 and SF10. So they've expanded it a little differently than what the original request was. And that is going to be displayed on page 21. That'll show you the layout. Based on the initial request May 4th, when they actually denied their request because we could not have consensus with my planning commission with regarding to moving forward, I did go ahead and have Turley do the appeal letter, which is in your packet as well, for them to have consideration by council for them to review. On May 11th, when we did meet again, that's when they recommended approval with the changing it from the townhomes to the patio homes. So we did get a consensus from the planning commission to move forward. You will notice in here too, as your packet starting on page 24, 25, and 26, it is straight out of our comprehensive plan, which does define what the future use of this property should look like. So with them wanting to rezone it for the commercial, for the SF6, SF8, and SF10, it does follow along with what our comprehensive plan dictates and shows for our future as far as what the citizens, the planning commission, and the city council had wanted at that time when it was adopted. If for some reason we go against our comprehensive plan with regarding our future vision of Lampasas, then that would require that we do an amendment to our comprehensive plan if we're not going to abide by how it's defined to us. So that is something that I did bring forth with the planning commission as well for them to determine exactly what the zoning should look like for this property. And you will notice that all of the opposition was definitely in reference to the drainage, the flooding, the overpopulating of the area, the traffic on 4th Street. All that is to be determined because that will be the next phase. So right now at this point, we are just focused on zoning. The next step would be a traffic impact analysis. We'll do the drainage study. We'll do civil plans. All that will still have to be under consideration. This is not plat approval. This is not a development approval. This is strictly for zoning, and it aligns with our comprehensive plan.
Just have a quick question with the alignment of the comprehensive plan. What was the issue with the townhomes instead of patio houses? Wouldn't the townhomes be a little bit more affordable housing?
Absolutely, and I think what they were trying to do was just trying to minimize the number of residents that would be in there. So where a townhome, you would have 2 dwellings basically on one lot, whereas a patio home, you would only have 1. So I think that's where their thought process was, from what I gathered from them and what they were trying to accomplish, kind of alleviates a little bit of that exhaustion,
And then would the, because if you look at this little strip right here is where the townhomes are listed. So that is gonna be less homes and they're gonna be patio homes in the same location.
That is the idea at this time, yes.
And
But we have not,
And the builder agreed to that?
the builder will do what needs to be done to get the development moving. So if that's what y'all agree to, is doing the patio home versus the townhomes, they will make that happen. I would imagine as time goes on, the concept will change anyway based on drainage patterns, the silver review, everything's traffic. So it's gonna change a little bit as we move forward, but if they're gonna do those exact townhomes straight to patio homes, I can't tell you that definitively yet because that has not been approved yet.
But that would be the area that we would be zoning for that, correct?
Possibly, yes ma'am.
So, but that wouldn't go against our comprehensive plan either if we did approve the townhomes.
It would not, no.
And then what about with the opposition letter from Hicks there? How are we gonna address the drainage issues over there?
Well, at this time, there is nothing for us to discuss because there has not been drainage study. So that is not something in our purview, that is not something that we have any facts or data to be able to analyze. However, they are here. If you want to listen to them, by all means, this is public comment, they can come and speak to you. And anybody else who's in the audience are more than welcome to come speak on their behalf regarding this zoning request.
I would like to, because the drainage, because I was at one of the previous meetings when it failed, and seeing the video of the drainage that happened after Sevco was put in was just jaw-dropping. And so I do think it's a huge issue. And if drainage stuff was done when Sevco came in, why are they flooding so horribly bad?
Well, I can't speak to that because I'm not an engineer, but like I said before, this is strictly for zoning. We have not got to a drainage study, we have not got to a silver review, we have not even done that yet.
Well, I guess my question is, how do we keep that from happening the second time?
It will have to be reviewed and done by an engineer. And then they'll have to go out for third-party review, and they'll have to make sure that it is up to state standards.
Mayor, Council, if I could answer maybe some of those questions and concerns that you have. I know the drainage in this area has been a big concern. As we talked with the Planning Commission, that was one thing that they had focus on. I think we're all aware of different, amounts of water. But the drainage study will define, while Becky was saying in regard to the patio homes and the townhomes, that drainage study will control, even if it's zoned for certain things, how those engineering studies work. They'll have to define where they're going to put that water. So it'll have to be engineered to make a determination on how big a detention area is. Or is it a detention basin, or is it a retention? Do you put in underground storm drain, hold it for a certain amount of time? All those things will be determined outside of the zoning piece of that, which is what this is. But I think they're all real concerns, and I think the reality is when you're looking at all those different engineering studies, things will change internal to that site. But drainage, as the engineer had mentioned, and I know Becky's mentioned, it has to be engineered to meet certain drainage requirements as far as time of concentration for that rain. Whether they're looking at that 100-year floodplain that's already defined close to the creek. So that information is there, and how they mitigate some of those things will all come down to the engineering aspect. So they may, like I said, there may be some green space areas. Obviously, what they've shown here, that's not a plat. That's some lots to try to kind of determine where they're going to zone things. But it may or may not be in the final design when they get to that point.
So if we go through and we do the zoning for patio homes and the SF6 and all that stuff, and it's kind of based on this, and then the engineering comes back and says, well, we can't put this here, we can't put that here, we need to rearrange that, and then we go back and rezone?
There's a possibility of that if you can't fit the lots into the specific zone that they've requested, and they still want to have however many patio homes. It may be one of those things that they have to take in more property. And those roads, the way they're showing is very, very preliminary. They typically will do that just to see what they can fit in there. Most firms will, but the reality is, as you mentioned, roads, different things will have to change internal to that site as they go through the design process. So what you're really looking at is kind of the overlay of the zoning and what they're proposing in the background, but it's not really anything that's been designed or been vetted through any kind of engineering process at this point.
And really what you're saying, Ryan, is it could be engineered, it could come back to us and say this site is not necessarily good for a subdivision on here. We're just saying that this type of property meets the comprehensive planning. It's kind of what that's what our job is right now. It's not to fill it up with a bunch of houses and that type of thing. Is that, am I kind of thinking along the same line?
That's correct. I mean, I think the zoning piece is what we're really looking at. You know, as Councilwoman Keeney mentioned, I mean, if you zone a certain piece, you're planning on putting patio homes in that area. So I think that's, you know, a good viewpoint from that stance. But the reality is it most likely will change at some point as they work through the process. Nothing is defined, you know, aligning, and one thing that Becky mentioned, and one thing that I'll stress, there's TxDOT approval needed for their entrance onto 4th Street. That's a TxDOT roadway. There will be some things they'll have to mitigate. There'll have to be a traffic impact analysis on the amount of homes that they're going to potentially put in there, and the amount of trips a day, and does that require a signal, and does that, how do you mitigate those things? So they'll work through that as they go, but you know, as you mentioned, Mayor, I think one of the things is at some point during the feasibility piece of it and doing the preliminary engineering pieces, some of that may or may not work. So,
Mayor and Council, I might just add one thing. Some of you may recall the process that we went through, for example, in Hillside Acres, as well as the Brody Estates. So what we're talking about here is zoning. There's another bite of the apple that needs to be taken. That's the subdivision process. The subdivision process requires civil drawings. It provides them to provide studies that Ryan mentioned. When we get those studies, the city, at least in recent history, has never accepted those studies at face value. We always go out and hire a third-party engineer and say, would you evaluate this? And so that's almost a third bite. But the analysis of drainage, the drainage plan, traffic impact, all of the other impacts, utilities, etc., all come through the subdivision process, which I think Planning Commission and Council can somewhat consider to be the second bite of the apple, as well as an item that we would get third-party validation or refusion of their costs.
So at this time, I would like to open up the public hearing for public comments as well. That's okay.
My name is Dale Kemp. I reside at 1613 Taylor Street, which is right adjacent to this property. For the folks that probably may or may not know me, we arrived here 14 years ago. My wife is a career Army nurse. We bought that old house that we live in now, which was constructed around the late part of the 1800s. That's been our home now for 40 years, so we have a lot of face time on this property and what happens there and what doesn't happen there. And it all sounds good as we put it together and we say, we'll cover that problem at a later date. We'll cover this problem at a later date. Right now, we're in the zoning area, and I understand what Billy says, and I understand what Ryan said about this thing. My contention is if you let the horse out, it's a heck of a lot more difficult to catch it and control it than it is to solve the problem as you go along on this thing. All of you have that packet. It has our letters in it, as well as information from the other people that have been involved in this thing. So, our concern has always been not to stifle growth here, but to do it in a manner that's consistent with Lampasas. Lampasas is very unique. We're not Copper's Cove, we're not Cleveland, we're not Austin. They're encroaching on us, and someday we may resemble that, but I'm not ready for that, and I hope you people are not either in this stuff. As we look at this thing, we talk about density. Density is all of our concern. It's been right from the get-go on this thing. This is a very high dense project that's being put in here. The plan is for 267 homes on 80 acres. If that's not dense, I'm not sure what dense would be. In addition, this is going to be the largest addition and subdivision in Lampasas, and as far as I know, one that's planned for any future in this town. How does this put a strain on our resources that we have right now? Public service. Do we have enough public service to cover all of this? Do we hire more people? How does all of this come into this picture? And that's our major concern is the sustainability of it for the city. Not only that, but there's a fair number of residents in that area, which are going to be dramatically affected by a subdivision of this size on this side. Now, I question the availability of electricity. We already know our rates are increasing. Do we have the ability to simply allow this to be built and we can just plug them into our grid system? Do we have water? We already know the water problem that not only within the city, but all of the surrounding area has. Is the infrastructure that we have capable of handling this? Or are we going to be in debt? We've heard the engineers from this project claim that all of this is going to be, the financial responsibility will be borne by them, but I'm not sure that that's going to be correct, because somehow the city is going to have to come up to the edge of this property with the necessary services on this. The sewer, for instance, in that area. Across my property, I have 2 easements that belongs to the city for the sewer that comes out of that area already over there. What are we going to do with that thing? Can they build over the existing line? Do they decommission that line and then the city rebuilds it again and puts it in some other position? I don't know. I can't answer those questions, and you people can't either. My concern is, right now we have a proposal to put a huge area out there. The other major concern about the density, and anybody that's gone through up 4th Street, down 4th Street, maybe turn into Walmart, go to our post office, you know what the problem on 4th Street is. 4th Street is a fairly narrow 2-lane road. We're not going to extend that to a 4-lane road unless you do a public domain and tear down houses. There's just no other way of doing it. There's no way that they can leave this property without access to 4th Street. Their main access right now is planned to be right directly across from the entrance to this huge CEFCO station. The other alternatives, if you look up on the other end, they call it Mill Street. That's not really what the plan is there. Now, Mill Street, that little section that's on that property, is only just a couple 100 feet long. And Mill Street itself is a very narrow city street. Half of the houses on Mill Street do not have off-street parking. It's on-street parking. So their only option is to come off that end, which they call Mill Street, and which is in reality about 100-foot distance, and it dumps into Brown Street. Okay, Brown Street. It's a dead-end street. It goes out to all of our city works out there, our sewage plants out there, all of our public city trucks going in and out of that thing. How's that going to affect all of that? I just can't imagine that that won't have an impact on the city services as well if we allow that to happen. The 190 access into this thing, which we also know 4th Street or Texas 257 on this thing. I just looked at some data on this thing, and the average annual daily traffic count just adjacent to our post office 6,506 counts per day. That's every day of the year, 365 days out of the year. How do we mitigate any of that? We put another stoplight and move that on the corner? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe TechStop has a magic way of solving that problem. I don't know any of that. So that's my concern about this. And we know 4th Street, with that amount of traffic, takes in 1/3 of the traffic inbound to Lampasas on a daily basis. 1/3 of that 190 traffic inbound to Lampasas turns right, goes up 4th Street into our city businesses and stuff. So somehow that has to be solved. I don't know how that's going to be. That's not my department. I'm not an engineer on this stuff. But I just ask that you people bear these things in mind as we do this. And I understand how the zoning works and all of the things that's going to happen after this zoning is passed. Ever how this thing works out. But again, I think there needs to be a comprehensive study done on this thing. Now, we've alluded to some of the things that are in the comprehensive plan for the city. But the one thing that, everybody has kind of missed on this point, if you read your manual on this thing, we know that area is in a 100-year floodplain produced by FEMA. And on page 98 of the manual, it plainly says that the city should discourage any development in floodplain-prone areas. I mean, that's a contradiction of terms on this thing. I'm not saying not to do it, I'm just saying we need to do this in a logical manner. Somebody needs to do a large study on this thing before we say, yep, this is a get going on this thing. So once this thing goes in, folks, this is not just our lifetime. This is going to be here forever. Not forever, but the next 100 years probably. So whatever we create, or you create, or we create in combination with this thing, it's permanent. I really think there needs to be a very comprehensive study done on who it's going to affect, what it's going to affect, and how we can mitigate any changes, not only to the city, but the residents who live in that area. Folks, that's kind of the story on this thing. We've been here for 40 years or so, living in that house. They talk about drainage. Well, it won't be a problem. We'll engineer this drainage. And
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but these are all questions that are going to come up after this. All we're talking about is zoning right now.
that's correct.
But this isn't improving.
This
is not really the forum for that.
I fully understand the concept of this thing. So my entire thought on this process is, can we not do any kind of a comprehensive little study or something before we approve this zoning just to see what it might look like? I mean, is it necessary that tonight we vote to do it one way or the other? I don't know the answer to that. You people will have to decide that among yourselves. The other thing I would invite anybody here in the audience, any member of the council, our new mayor, come out and look at this area. Have you ever seen it in person? Do you really know what we're talking about? Come out, I'll personally take you around the property and show you these things that we're just now talking about. So, council, it's up to you. It's your decision. Thank you very much for your time.
More testimony?
Howdy. Can you hear me? My name is Will Cisco with Turley Associates. We're out of Temple, Texas, and we represent the developer for this project. We're the civil engineer and surveyor on the job. So I don't feel that I really need to belabor any of the technicalities that have already been discussed, regarding the process, zoning, planning, etc. But I do want to just address a couple of things. And and I've got some notes here. I was taking notes as all this was being discussed, so I'll kind of just go point by point. There was a question about cost to the city, and obviously the plan that we're working off of is that the construction of the subdivision is at no cost to the city. Obviously, we will be building city streets and dedicating them to the city, so the long-term maintenance, as I'm sure you're aware, is obviously going to fall on the city, but there is some extension of city infrastructure to the property, a water line, and maybe a sewer line. I'm actually not sure, but though even the off-site extensions to the property are developer cost. So just wanted to clarify that one point. And I know the traffic is obviously a concern. I just want to quickly clarify what that TIA process will even look like, just so that you're aware. We obviously have to know what we can build on the property. We have to know how many lots council will allow us to build in order to conduct that traffic study, because a much higher density is going to require more traffic. Once that study takes place, it's done by we don't do our own traffic studies. We outsource that to a traffic engineer, who that's all they do, and then we'll submit that to the city, or to the city and to TxDOT actually. TxDOT will then review it. They have traffic engineers, they'll review it, and what that study recommends as mitigating factors, y'all are allowed to say you cannot build this subdivision unless you do the mitigating factors. So if a traffic engineer hired by the developer says something that then TxDOT and the city agree with, if it says you've got to upgrade the signal at 4th Street, or you've got to add a signal, or you've got to widen 4th Street, or put in turn lanes, whatever all the traffic engineers in the room agree to, it's within y'all's ability to enforce that on the developer. So, those, again, not to belabor the point, but those types of things 100% will come before y'all again for final decisions. The drainage is obviously a concern. If you do visit the site, you can see that it's very, very flat across a large portion of the site, and I'm sure it holds water today. I don't doubt that. I've also heard a lot about the Stefco's drainage problems, and there's a church, I think, that have drainage problems. Those properties are upstream of this property, so we're receiving. If those properties have caused problems, we're receiving water from them on the property that we're proposing to develop. So we'll be taking their water and then passing it through our site. There's really one property downstream of us before it gets into the creek. Actually, on one side of our property, we have a direct connection to the creek and to that major floodway. So yes, there are issues to resolve. That's what we do. We evaluate land, we figure out how to build a subdivision in a manner that complies with state law, city regs, county regs, TxDOT regs. Let's see. I do want to mention, the idea of patio homes was brought up, and I didn't actually get a chance to see that. I think you had an exhibit that showed patio, the difference between patio and townhome. Can I take a look at that?
This is gonna be.
Was there a picture though?
I gave them. I'll show you.
Okay, perfect. I do just want to mention that I know P&Z made that recommendation. The developer would prefer to proceed with townhomes, and I'll tell you part of the reason why is on that image, you can see the townhomes are gonna go vertical. And what's right behind these townhomes is the treatment facility. And so, we're talking about, 260-ish lots. The reduction in lots going from patio to townhome is marginal. I can't imagine it's 5 to 10 or something along those lines. Overall, it's a very minor decrease. And so we feel that the benefit of having that townhome as a buffer for the rest of the subdivision is something to pursue. And so we would ask council to just consider what we put forward rather than the recommendation from P&Z. But as was mentioned, it's not a hill that I'm going to die on, but that's what our preference is. I think that sums up. I'd be happy to answer any other more specific questions if you have them.
How would the town hall be a buffer?
Just with the verticality of it,
Okay.
and the fact that they're all connected, so there'll only be, rather than a lot of gaps with those patio homes, you'll only have two or three probably. There will only be 2 or 3 gaps, and so from the subdivision, from the homes that we're proposing to build, those townhomes will essentially block the view of the, looking into that city property to the back.
Well, one of the questions I had, and I just don't know how many, because we're talking about 3 acres. So how many townhomes could you fit into 3 acres versus how many patio homes with the difference of the 1,500 square feet extra? Because I think it seems like the planning and zoning, when I went to the first meeting, it seems like they were trying to do less rooftops and more green space to absorb water. That's what I think that their logic was, but that's just my guesstimate.
Yeah, it's marginal for the whole subdivision. It's going to be a handful less rooftops. So yes, it's less rooftops. It's less impervious cover to tackle all those drainage questions.
You're not sure the difference of numbers. Like
Total-
how many
do you have the
townhomes?
total number? You go 30 is what we have to propose, you go 20.
So you go from 30 patio homes to 20, you go from 30 townhomes to 20 patio homes. Total impervious cover though, honestly, it's probably the same because the townhome is vertical, you're gonna have 2 stories. So like a 1,500 square foot patio home takes up 1,500 square feet. A 1,500 square foot townhome only takes up 750 square feet because it's 2 stories. So it's marginal.
And again, right now, we're just talking about zoning, and the zoning can change after feasibility studies, drainage studies. This is just, we're kind of talking in circles right now about something down the road, it seems like.
Yeah, we've looked at the property enough to...
Y'all wouldn't be looking at going forward if you didn't think...
Yes, we intend to build, something pretty close to what we put forward. We've looked at the property enough to know that it's feasible. We just have to go to the next step and make sure that the city of Lampasas, wants it. And then, again, not to belabor the point, but at some point you gotta comply.
I think we're there though.
Yeah.
I think the point has been belabored for a while. I think it's time to move on.
Yeah, agreed. Any other questions? Cool, thanks.
That's all the testimony that we have this afternoon. I'd like to close this public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Have a night. Close. All those in favor?
Aye.
concerning the approval of minutes of the regular meeting held on May 8th, 2023.
Move to approve the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Consent agenda. The discussion of possible action regarding the second reading of an ordinance to approve proposed electric rates. Discussion and possible action regarding the second reading of an ordinance to approve proposed water rates. Discussion and possible action regarding the second reading of an ordinance to approve proposed garbage rates.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All for?
Aye.
Aye.
No nays?
Mayor, council, Mark is gonna be forwarding my presentation here. In your packet, you do have my report for April, but I want to go over kind of some things from the past year. First of all, we have 2 full-time staff, 3 part-time staff. They work about, the part-time staff work about 24 hours a week. We are open 44 hours a week, and our current collection is about 28,000 books, audiobooks, DVDs, hotspots, and that does include the microfilm that doesn't leave the library. We also have access to 16,500 downloadable materials through our Overdrive. It's a consortium of 40-something libraries. So that's a total of over 44,000 items that our patrons have access to. So this is our mission statement that we came up with recently. We revamped it quite a bit, actually. So the Lampasas Public Library strives to serve, engage, and empower our community by inspiring creativity, providing information to promote lifelong learning, and fostering collaboration through relevant partnerships. So all staff participated in this. So this has all of their input. This is what we're striving for every day. So looking at our circulation from May 21 to 22, and then 22 to 23, we saw a 10.9, almost 11% increase in circulation. And then our door count, people through the door, was at 14.5%. So we're getting back to our pre-COVID numbers, getting closer and closer. So I'm glad to see that. Some of the programs that we had over the last year, of course, was our summer reading program, which is just the month of June. With Spring Hope being the second week in July, we just had our summer reading program to that. In July, every Wednesday, Baby U volunteers will come and do story time and crafts for the kids. Gives us a break. But throughout the rest of the year, we have bi-weekly story times that our staff does. And then, of course, the Explore Lampasas program that we had beginning of July last year, and then again, it just wrapped up this month. Kids had a good time doing projects and exploring their community. So, Cornelia Key Book Club meets monthly at the library. They have an average of about 10 people, always looking for new members, so very interesting. Last year we had a Scholastic Book Fair, which we raised about $2,000. We sold about $2,000 worth of materials, so we get that money back in Scholastic dollars, which means you get to order stuff from their website credit. How interesting that bottom left-hand corner pictures is an example of one of our projects. Those were felt blue bonnets. They turned out really nice. That's also a monthly class, just different crafts. Head Start Story Times, one of our volunteers, has been doing that twice a month for us during the school year. So we appreciate her help with that. Emily does theme days once a month as well. And again, that's science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So experiments, Lego robotics is a big draw, so she does that quite a bit. 42 Club meets once a month at the library. They run about six people, I think. So we need 8. So if anybody knows how to play 42, come the last Saturday of the month. Christmas escape room, which we also just had another one. Those have been pretty popular, so we continue to do those periodically. Symbols of Texas, that was Carol Wright. There's a picture there of her holding a picture of a monarch. She brought like 30 some odd symbols of Texas. I did not know there are 77 in all, most of which were enacted or whatever in 21 and 22. And then Janet Crozier came and did Square Foot Gardening for us. She also did one of the programs for Explore Lampasas. So we appreciate her. And then we just started last month a new series called Just Do It. And basically we're going through the Dewey Decimal System, starting 000, picking a topic out of there and having a program on it. So the first one was computers, so we did like internet basics and online security. Then we're moving to the brain, psychology is the 100s. 200s is going to be, it's about service projects and like with your family and everything. So we're doing those, we're doing those at the library once a month, and we've been invited to do that at the States of Lampasas once a month as well. So. Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, just to give you an update on that, we have 493 children under 5 currently receiving books. We've had 228 graduate, and so that's a total of 721 that have signed up so far. And if you didn't know, when we first started that program, we thought we might have 100 the first year. We're over 700. And we just started August of 21. So we're way ahead. So we need money for that. A service that we have that you may not be aware of too is our video streaming service. So there's 2 separate collections, one for adults, one for kids. You can see for the adults we have 44,000 videos available, and those are from like A&E, BBC, HBO, some pretty big time producers. And then for the kids, over 12,500 titles. Including PBS, Reading Rainbow, Sesame Street. So our numbers have kind of been up and down on that. I'm not sure why. We're still trying to get the word out about it, but it's a really cool service. So Libby, I mentioned that. That's the downloadable materials like ebooks, e-audio books. So if you don't have that on your device, if you have a library card, you can download it. Free access to thousands of books. Texture card is available for those who would otherwise have to pay a non-resident fee, like Cove. Someone that lives in Cove can get a texture card from Cove Library, bring it over here, and we would not charge them the non-resident fee. Likewise, we will issue texture cards, and they can go use their cards in Georgetown or wherever. So, and do not have to pay. And then the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, that's a program similar to Dolly Parton, except this just encourages parents to read with their children, and if they read at a certain rate, they will have read 1,000 books before the child gets to kindergarten. So that's the goal. A while back, we got approval for this app, and it's finally active. And so this is kind of the first time we've announced it. It is an app that's available in the Google Play Store as well as the Apple App Store. But basically, you can manage all your family members' accounts in one place. There's an image of your library card on there, so it's digital. You can just show that to us. We can scan that. It allows you to search the catalog. You can reserve and renew materials. You can see our Facebook feed on there, as well as our calendar of events. And they pull that from the city website. So all of that in one place, I think is really going to be handy, especially during summer reading when all parents check out lots and lots of books. So they don't have late fees, they can just keep checking on their accounts. So. Barbecue for Books, after not having the fundraiser for 2 years, we sold almost 1,100 meals in October. So that's just a picture of some of the water and the banana boxes for deliveries. About 2/3 of our sales were for deliveries, so a lot of meals went out. And then just upcoming, Lance Tomakara, who's great-great-grandson of Fauna Parker, will be here tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. We've had him here before a few years ago. It was a big draw, so we're expecting a good crowd again for that. And then again, summer reading, month of June. And then our next Barbecue for Books will be October 16th. So mark your calendars. And, with all the talk about the eclipse, we have some eclipse merchandise available at the library. We're selling our glasses for $2. We have a sheet of, they're called Tech Taxis. There are 7 different stickers on there for your tech devices or your tumblers or whatever for $10. And then a little Texas shaped magnet for $1. So, any questions?
I just want to thank you for all that you do. It's amazing, all these programs.
Thank you. We stay busy. I keep Emily busy for sure.
Well, feel free to reach out to any one of the council and myself and for anything that you need or down there, because we want to serve you.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
City Manager, present his operational report. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a few brief comments to follow along in the memo, but I might first say that as evidence tonight, the kids at the beginning of the program and Shanda's presentation to you, our library isn't just books on a shelf. And one of the most important assets we have for our community, and the staff and volunteers have given generously and continue to do a great job in terms of making sure their mission is met to youth, adults, and families in our community. So with that, just wanted to give you a brief update on WCID action. As you know, the Lampasas County Water Control and Improvement District is the entity that is responsible for the flood control, the maintenance and flood control dams to the west of town. And one of the issues that we reported to you previously was the WCID's request for TCQ for a contested hearing on the Pitt Creek subdivision. Pitt Creek subdivision is located actually outside of our extraterritorial jurisdiction. However, staff has always tried to keep you informed on WCID activities after their meet, et cetera. But the update is that they do have an initial appearance date with SOA, the State Office of Administrative Hearings, on May 23rd. And then I would just also remind council that the WCID generally does not have any opposition to the subdivision. Now, what it wants to make sure of is there's no negative impact to the flood control structures. It appears that provided we can get some third-party validation of the engineering calcs for that subdivision, that's the only issue. How will it impact those dams, or will it impact those dams that control floodwaters that could eventually get into Lampasas? So that's the update from WCID. CIP met on May 18th. The primary agenda item was to review the committee summary and statement and narrative. I think we had a really productive meeting. Just to remind you, that report will probably come out to you. It'll have 4 or 5 different schedules in it. It'll have public facilities needs, capital improvement needs. We also have thrown in fleet schedule, major maintenance, etc. We do plan to present that to council on June 12th after we put in the final edits that the committee gave to staff on the 18th. I might also take this opportunity to defer to the mayor and council member Williamson. They're a member of that committee. Did any comments in terms of your sense of that meeting?
It is a very effective tool for the council to move through.
We will polish that up and get it to you on the 12th, and I'm sure that we'll have several committee members here as well. LEDC met on May 10th. That's about a week earlier than normal. We had some business to take care of that required us to meet a week earlier. We did approve draft covenants, so I think we've been talking about covenants at the business park for 2 or 3 or 20 years, however long it's been out there, but we will be making the final edits as directed by the board and then filing those with the county clerk's office. The other thing that I wanted to report to you in terms of the LEDC, and this, 100% of this credit goes to Stacy in terms of setting this up. We did have a captive lunch in Austin with representatives from the Governor's Office of Economic Development and Tourism. And as you can imagine, during session, Governor's staff is running everywhere. We had 11 members of their staff, including the executive director, the community development director, finance specialist, project development coordinator. And I think it was a very good two-way conversation. What resources can the state provide? What different departments and different positions do and how they can help us, as well as it was the opportunity for us to really tell them some exciting news about what's going on in the business park and in Lampasas. So it was a very good, productive meeting. And Stacy, did I miss anything? Good job. Also, we want to, through this report, and we don't anticipate objection, but we certainly wanted to run it by you. At the May 8th meeting, we talked to you a little bit about cost and budget related to Eclipse services and equipment and items. And this is meant as kind of a next step update report, but we would like to go ahead and start the process of beginning to procure those items. And what I'm talking about here is we're not going out and buying things. What we're doing is making sure that we follow our purchasing and procurement policy, gathering up this information, and then we will bring it back to you. We feel like the timing is still okay, although we'd like to move on this fairly soon, and without objection, we'll head in that direction. Staff is pleased to recognize the following employees who began their City of Lampasas careers in May. Francisco Palacio, 6 years. Marissa Smith, 4 years. Rodney Kepler, 4 years. Priscilla West, 1 year. Sergeant Antonio Suarez Vario, 21 years. Warren Spivey, 11 years. Jonathan Guerra, 5 years. Colton Baker, 8 years. Josh Straley, 16 years. Danica Keeling, 5 years. Esther Ramirez, 5 years. Marcel Chapa, 13 years, Cody Kepler, 5 years, and Patricia Eicher, 7 years. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Just a couple, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I gotta make a comment.
Yeah, there's comments.
I just wanted to take a couple of minutes and just thank you, staff. Number one, thank my family, my wife. 38 years, 7 years prior to that, she put up with me. And so I hope she'll put up with me through all of this. And I want to thank you again. And my girls, that have stuck with your dad for all these years. I'm excited to serve you guys. I'm excited for our council to serve you guys. And I'm excited to serve our citizens and our staff. And I think Lampasas got a bright future ahead of us. And I know my office and my cell phone is open most of the time. I got to sleep a little bit. But I just encourage each and every one, if you've got something on your mind, reach out. And we're going to go to bat. We're going to make the best choices and decisions that we can make. I think there's wisdom in this collective group here that exceeds the wisdom of one man. And there's not just one man running the show. There's a group of us. And I just appreciate everybody that gave me your support, and I thank our staff. All that being said, Ryan, you're up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I apologize for stepping in. The next item that we have is our getting ready for asphalt season, so we're excited. It's that time of year again. We've got a couple streets picked out this year. And when I say a couple, I mean about 5 to 6 streets. To give you a little bit of background, and what I would like to say as we start off here on the procurement funding statement, this is a capital outlay project. Let me back that up just a little bit. Is that better? Okay, sorry. This is actually a capital outlay budgeted item that comes from the general fund. So I wanted to just make that correction. We had 82 in front of the account number, 82,551,5545. It should be 10 in front of that number, which is our streets capital outlay. So I just want to make sure I get that corrected for record. But again, the streets crew has worked hard. We implemented a Pacer rating system. I know I've talked to council about this several times and kind of how we go about looking at streets. How we assess those, and the Pacer rating for new council members that haven't heard this before is just a system of going out and putting eyes on all of our streets in town. We have almost 60 miles that we maintain, and looking at them kind of holistically. So we've had 2 individuals out of the street department spending a lot of time in the field. We do that year in, year out, looking at the types of cracks, the types of potholes, how the road's functioning. So to give you a little bit of background, looking at traffic volumes. And this year's paving roads that we selected, we were trying to look at as western out here from 190 to the bridge, some areas that take on a lot of traffic volume. While sometimes when you look at some of these roads, you'll think, well, that looks pretty good. And I'll be honest with you, the city of Lampasas has some of the better roads in Texas as far as city goes. I've lived in a lot of different cities, and per capita, our rating is pretty good for a city this size. So I just want to stress that, and the staff that keep that up is what we implement. But this year, we went out for a paving bid, which is a hot mix product. It comes out 2 inches is what we spec. Last year we did 1.5 inches. Usually between that 1.5 to 2 inch thickness of asphalt is what we try to shoot for. This year we have Western, as I mentioned, Pecan, Sunrise Hills, just a piece coming in on the entrance to about the mailbox, if you're familiar with that, coming off the TxDOT highway. Bridge Street, which we've been totally reconstructing off of 4th, between 4th and Bridge. Avenue B is another street that we seal coated several years ago, but doesn't have a final asphaltic surface on it. It was just a seal coat, so we're going to overlay that street. And then we have an alternate bid item. We actually put 2 alternates in our bid tabs for 6th Street and Main Street, depending on what those costs came in at. The actual bid is in your packet for you to review, but we're going to go ahead and accept the 6th Street piece, so it's basically from Key Avenue with the light there next to HEB to Main Street. So that section of road will be fully repaved, and that's, again, you know, we tried to focus on heavy volume roads as much as we could this year. Last year we were looking at more residential. We've kind of mixed it a little bit this year, but focused on that. And so this is to consider a motion to award bid for the hot mix. The actual base bid price was $229,041.30, and we're also accepting alternate bid item 1 for $63,262.60 if council choose. And the one thing I will say, there was 2 bidders this year. A lot of times in the past, we typically have 2 to 3, so it's pretty consistent with what we've seen in the past. We actually had several other contractors pull packets this year, more than in the past, so I think we had 7 total that pulled packets, but 2 bidders. And so Texas Materials was the one that had the lowest base bid, and the lowest bid overall bid was the other paving company that supplied us the bids with. So I'll stand for any questions.
Move to award bid for HMAC paving project 03-STR-23 to Texas Materials Group Incorporated with the lowest base bid of $229,041.30. An alternate bid item 1 of $63,262.60 for a total bid tabulation of $292,303.90.
Second.
Anybody have any questions? Open it up to the floor.
This is all budgeted.
It is.
Good to go, under budget.
Under budget, we were shooting for $300,000, and it's right under $300,000 this year.
All right. All up. Give me a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, discussion and possible action regarding the approval of resolution supporting transportation alternative application to provide funding for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and planning.
Thank you again, Council. This particular item is one that I've brought before. The Texas, or the actual Texas Transportation Alternative Set Aside Grant, the TA program, is one that looks at communities and impacts, and this particular grant through TxDOT, funded through federal dollars, looks at communities that have a plan in place for pedestrians, for bicyclists, how those interact, transportation wise with other vehicles, and where we can, you know, add safety to the community and make it more walkable. So just a little bit of background about that that I wanted to share. But we applied for the first preliminary piece of this grant, proposing Western Street, so basically Western from 190 to North Street, and then from North Street all the way to Nix. So those 2 segments are what we're looking at and what we've been working with TxDOT on. We did make it through the first round, and what we're proposing is sidewalks. As many of you have seen out here, especially on Western, we have sidewalk specifically on one side of the street as you come into downtown, not on the other side in most places. It looks at ADA amenities such as ramps, you know, so improving that for the ADA needs that we have in the community, as well as keeping a buffer and keeping folks off the street, walking on sidewalks, and hopefully implementing bike lanes along the shoulders. Most of these roads are typically 40-foot wide or wider, which allows us to fit bike lanes in, as well as two-way traffic in with the right-of-way that we have for city right-of-way platted. Typically, that's about 60 foot on most of these roads, which gives us room too then behind the back of curb to put sidewalk in. So the actual ask for this is to move to the second, basically the second application process, more of a detailed. I've been working on that this weekend, collecting data and trying to packet that up so it's basically a set dollar amount that we'll apply for. What makes it through the scoring process, it's looked at from a state level. So there's cities from all over Texas. I know in the Brownwood district, I think it's currently us and maybe 2 other towns that are applying for this within the Brownwood district, who's our TxDOT district. So the chances are pretty good. You never know when they start scoring these projects, but we're trying to give them all that information to make a good decision and kind of take a hard look at our community to improve these types of facilities.
All right, I move to approve the resolution in support of the Texas Department of Transportation's 2023 Transportation Alternatives Set Aside call for projects, specifically preliminary engineering, plans, specifications, and estimates, and environmental documentation, and construction of pedestrian and or bicycle infrastructure to include local match.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
You got to open up for discussion. All right, so do you have to set a dollar amount now? Like we make it through the second one, are we locked in to matching?
So that's a great question. So the matching funds, since we fall under the transportation development credits, we're one of the cities that fall underneath that. If the money's set aside and there's enough money and our project is selected, it will be covered 100%, except for if we have overruns in the project. If we're selected and we go out there for bids and we miss a section of sidewalk or the engineer didn't plan for that, we have to make some change order or changes in the field that will cost X amount of dollars, that we will be liable for, but that's still being vetted. So there's not a total guarantee on the matching funds. Typically these types of grants are 80-20, it's usually a 20% match. I'm currently working on the final numbers for our estimate that we'll submit, but a lot of these projects and kind of, the range that they look at is anywhere from 500,000 to, up to 5 million. And so, how that impacts and how that scores is where the money gets, allocated to. So
right now, if we pass this and we're basically blindly going in there with, there could be more money that comes up that we're just agreeing to now. Is there a number that we should set for in your opinion, for some kind of basis if you go over?
So this particular resolution is just to let us submit a detailed application. There is no guarantee that we're, even if we're selected, should we not have the matching funds, depending on what that dollar amount is, you're not necessarily locked into that. This is a resolution saying we would like to move forward to the next process. And those dollars can change. So I'm hoping, with what I've already put together, looking at it from kind of an engineering standpoint per item, it's probably going to be $1 million to 1.5 million range would probably be the ask. And so, how that scores and what dollars are there for matching, then will be determined if we're selected for that detailed application to go forward. And then you have some agreements that go in place with TxDOT, the AFAs, and some of the other agreements that will be brought back to council before there's any dedication of funds, for a match if we do have to match it.
So this area we're talking about, in this area we're talking about, do you see any problematic areas that cause an overrun or roofs?
I see problematic areas, not necessarily. If we engineer it correctly, I think we can accommodate some of the areas. So everybody's familiar with North Street going from Key to Nix, that segment in there. There's a large drainage ditch. Obviously, that section is TxDOT Road, or TxDOT right-of-way there, but that ditch and how we mitigate moving bicyclists and pedestrians through that area will be tricky. It can be engineered in a way that allows us to put some buffers in there. You've seen those kind of flexi posts to delineate, the delineator posts that mount to the pavement with striping to give us kind of a shared use where we may have to get off sidewalks and utilize some of that street, but build in some buffers in, but that would all be taken account into engineering. But I think for the most part, the things you're looking at on these types of projects that you're trying to mitigate for is bridges. And currently, the Western Street bridge already has sidewalk. We wouldn't be doing anything to that bridge, so there's nothing there. The rest of it, or at least the rest of the design pieces that you're looking at are right-of-way. Do we have enough right-of-way? Do we have to acquire it? In this scenario, we feel like we have enough right-of-way based on plat in our city right-of-way to try to keep it within that footprint. So there's no property acquisition that we're prepared to do. And as well as, we're lucky because a lot of our roads are very wide and accommodating with curb and gutter. And so, the mountable surface, typically bike lanes are about 5 foot wide. You try to set that parameter. And so, when you think about a 40-foot wide road, you still have minimum 12-foot lanes, usually a little bit more. On some of these roads are 50-foot wide. North going towards Nix is substantially wider. So I think the only other thing I would say that we'd have to mitigate is the terrain. So the sidewalks on that steep hill and how that's kind of designed and laid out. You may have some cuts where you have a little bit of a retaining wall into the yard, short walls. But I think overall, I think all this can be addressed during the engineering phase of it.
And the way that motion is presented, though, where it includes preliminary engineering construction of pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure to include local match, that's just to determine what the local match would be. We're not committing to that right now.
Correct. There shouldn't be, based on the transportation credits, there shouldn't be a match. But once that was determined, then we would bring it back for approval through council. There's nothing.
It's not like a blind commitment right now to develop.
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Right. Understand.
We have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Seven point three, discussion and possible action in moving forward with procurement assessment services for New Hope Baptist Church.
Mayor and council, based on discussion during the workshop, staff believes that no action is necessary on this item. This item will be placed on a future workshop meeting agenda as discussed further on the agenda in item 7.6.
7.4, discussion and possible action to declare outdated IT equipment as surplus and allow to dispose of as state law allows.
Mayor and City Council, staff is requesting approval to dispose of city-owned unusable IT equipment that was used at various departments. The equipment staff is requesting to dispose of is either end of life, broken, no longer supported, or has been replaced. So staff is just asking council to consider a motion to declare unusable IT equipment as surplus and allow staff to dispose of as state law allows.
I move to declare unusable IT equipment as surplus and allow the staff to dispose of it as state law allows.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Discussion and possible action regarding the request from Lampasas County Chamber of Commerce for hotel occupancy tax fund in an amount of $1,250 for event expense related to the annual toughest 10K, 5K, and 1 mile run on July 8, 2023.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to represent that the staff has vetted the application process and it does meet the hot fund requirements. This is an annual expense that we go through. Melissa Ungar will go over the details of the actual run, but I have reviewed the application and it is permittable.
Thanks, Becky. Welcome to the new seats. You guys will do great. And I'm just really glad I got to come to this meeting. So just wanted to let everyone know you have the packet in front of you. The request is less than last year's initial request, but more than the submitted post-report request that was reimbursed. And the projection this year is due to cover variable expenses based on registration numbers. So the reason why it's over what was actually submitted back to me in reimbursement last year is just for the variable, depending on how many registrants, runners we have. Because as that number goes up, expenses go up. So, any questions?
Recommend approval of hot funds in the amount of $1,250 for event expenses related to the annual toughest 10K, 5K, and 1 mile run on July 8, 2023 to the Lampasas County Chamber of Commerce.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Discussion of possible action to identify date for council work session on short and mid-range goals.
Mayor and council, based on discussion at the workshop, it sounds like we need a date and a time, but it sounds like we would like to maybe start at 4:30 at the New Hope Baptist Church, maybe reconvene to Calvert afterwards, and certainly that would be one of the pieces of the agenda, but I'd be open to any additional comments as well as looking for a date and time from council that would be convenient to all. Just first of all, 4:30 works for everybody. Is there a particular date and time someone would like to suggest, or
Monday, June 5th, maybe?
June 5th?
Sounds good.
It works for me.
June 5th, 4:30?
I'm not sure, I'll check.
And are we gonna be in town?
Let's see.
I'm not going to okay, thanks.
We'll shoot for that date. If Councilmember Hernandez, if you have a problem with that, we can throw out a couple more dates if necessary. That's all I have for this agenda item, Mayor. Thank you.
7.7, discussion and possible action regarding the expansion of recycling program in Lampasas County and to establish a tracking method and associated annual fee for service.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council again. This particular item we discussed in workshop. One of the things we did discuss was the dollar amount if council so chooses to allow county residents to use our recycling center. And it was $36 annually is what we had proposed, or what council feels is relevant to that.
I make a motion to approve the expansion of recycling services to Lampasas County residents with latitude to reevaluate as needed to ensure the same level of service is being provided to Lampasas citizens.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Would we make an amendment to put in for $36 annually?
I'll second the amendment.
So we need to have a motion and a second on this amendment.
What, Becky, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe what the normal process would be, you would first vote on the amendment, and then you would vote on the main motion.
Okay. So we have a motion on the main amendment.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And now, Mayor, you would ask, you go back for a vote on the main motion. I believe it's the second one. So we'll go back on the main motion that Jack Morris.
Somebody, close.
This was how
We have a
Yes. Yes. Yes, sir.
You say that again?
Yes, sir, I can. Make a motion to approve the expansion of recycling services to Lampasas County residents with latitude to reevaluate as needed to ensure the same level of service is being provided to Lampasas citizens.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Seven point eight, discussion and possible action to approve or deny or approve with modification of request to rezone 79.971 acres, commonly known as 1206 Mill Street and 1705 East 4th Street.
Mayor and council, this item is discussed during public hearing. At this time, we're asking to consider a motion to approve, deny, or approve with modifications to request for rezone the 79.971 acres, commonly known as 1206 Mill Street and 1705 East 4th Street, as presented on the concept plan that is consistent with the Lampasas comprehensive plan.
Move to approve as presented. Rezoning request of 79.971 acres commonly known as 1206 Mill Street and 1705 East 4th Street is presented on the concept plan consistent with the Lampasas comprehensive plan.
Second.
So, just as a discussion, you're doing this with the townhomes, not the patio homes.
That's the way I present the motion. Yeah, with townhomes.
And the zoning board presented it with the patio homes.
That was the recommendation, Mason.
The townhomes is not against the comprehensive plan. There's still a long way to go.
All right.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
At this time, we'll adjourn. Oh, we need a motion to adjourn into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, you should also, for the public, read the descriptions of why we're going into executive session for the agenda. That is correct. Relating to the authority of public power utility governing bodies to deliberate regarding competitive matters of utility, and in section 8.2, economic development, to receive and evaluate financial information to receive from a business prospect, to discuss same and or to deliberate regarding commercial or financial information that the city has received from a business prospect that the city seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in or near the city, with which the city is conducting economic development negotiations and or to deliberate and offer of any financial or other incentives to any business prospect described above. Adjourn to executive session and reconvene. And I make a motion.
I move to adjourn into executive session to a meeting and close executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551.
Mayor and Council, I'd ask that Ryan Ward, Assistant City Manager, and Stacey Ibarra be included in the executive session without objection.
Coming out of executive session, there's no motion to be made, so I think it's time to go home.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.